What's up, Kris Krohn here in the heart of Alaska. I'm taking down some serious miles on my hike. And I recently read a comment about debt to income ratio. You're asking, Kris, what is debt to income ratio and why is it important? And I'm thinking, I don't know, it's like the reason why I made my first $1.6 million. So you know what? Today here in the wild, I'm gonna be shooting a video for you on what is debt to income ratio and how do you leverage it to create wealth.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! I'm turning dreams into reality. Yeah, it's one shot, now the future is yours. Go!
Hey, what's up? Kris Krohn here. I am at base camp here in the heart of Alaska. And as I'm making this video about debt to income ratio, it's because a lot of you ask me questions saying, Kris, how much house can I qualify for? Or how do I actually qualify for getting a mortgage? Or if I want to be a successful investor, or if I want to make a lot of money as a real estate investor, then I got to figure out how to play the game of the bank, right? How do I get the bank to give me money? And my friend, that comes down to debt to income ratio. Now, your debt to income ratio is a very simple mathematical equation. Essentially, it's a ratio of all of your revolving debts to your income. For example, if I have $1,000 a month of debt, but I have $2,000 a month of income, then roughly I have a 50% debt to income ratio. It means that roughly half of the money I make goes to servicing my debts every month. Here's the question though. What number does the bank want to see to be able to actually give you money for a mortgage? Believe it or not, what you're looking at is a runway for a Super Cub, a super small plane. That's what brought me in here, to get in the middle of nowhere. What kind of runway do you actually need to actually pick up a mortgage? Well, I call it the 0.43 rule. You see, the bank wants to see a debt to income ratio where essentially they want to see that they could give you, they want to use up 43% of your maximum available income for a mortgage. So in a situation like that, the banks might say, hey, let's say you're making $5,000 a month, but you have $1,000 a month of revolving debt. That would be a 20% debt to income ratio and allow you to get a mortgage up to 43%. That means that there's 23% left, or probably equivalent to what's going to be $1,200, $1,300 a month mortgage. You could probably buy a $200,000 house with that, just to give you an idea. Nowhere. That's where we're headed. Nowhere. Now, it's super important that you don't get overwhelmed with this math. Let me give you a really simple example. We're gonna walk through it together. Let's just say for a moment that you made $5,000 a month, but your debts were actually $700 a month. 5,000 divided by 700 gives you a ratio of 0.14%. That means that roughly 14% of the money you make is actually going towards servicing your debts. But remember, a bank will allow you to have a mortgage up to a total amount of debt of 0.43%. That's the safe number. That means in this situation, you can probably qualify for a mortgage pretty easy. You know what's wild? There's a couple of things happening that actually help you get a mortgage in today's real estate market when it comes to debt to income ratio. The first thing is the Fed just lowered rates again. They were already lowered at a 50-year all-time low, and now they're down again. That actually makes it easier to qualify for more mortgage. Think about it. If you have a lower payment, then you could actually buy more house. So the lower the rate, the more real estate you can buy. The second thing is politicians are going nuts right now. Everyone, both on the Republican and Democratic side, Donald Trump himself, they're talking about student loan forgiveness. So basically, in this government-forced recession, that, you know, obviously Donald Trump wants to keep his political image as high as possible. He's now finally getting on the bandwagon with many of the Democrats with this idea of let's just forgive student loan debt. Now remember, if your student loans are forgiven, that means that you have less debt, and it means that you can qualify for more real estate. Let me tell you something about debt to income ratio. I get it. It's kind of a difficult to understand term, debt to income ratio. But ultimately, it's a measurement that the bank uses to determine how much debt they believe you can handle before you break. For example, I'm hiking and check out my bag. Tony here went through my bag and he took every last ounce out of it that he didn't think I needed to bring, because today we're going over that mountain peak over there. We just came this morning from the river down there. You can't even see it, it's so far down. So if I try to carry too much weight on my back, then I'm gonna have to stop more. I'm gonna get tired more. And if I carry enough weight, I may not be able to make it up the mountain. Debt to income ratio is kind of similar. The bank basically looks at your financial situation and they say, all right, if you make $5,000 a month and you want us to give you a loan for a house, we have to look at how much other debt you have. For example, you owe $600 a month on car debt, and that payment is every month. You also have some student loans with some payments that have kicked in, and you have $10,000 of credit card debt that costs you another $500 a month. So you know what, based on your situation, we'll allow you a max of $800 more a month for housing debt, for a mortgage. Well, $800 a month really can only buy you a $140,000 house. And guess what? If you live in a market where houses cost a lot more than that, your debt to income ratio is too high and the bank is not going to give you a mortgage, or they're only going to give you such a small mortgage that it doesn't work. So the secret to having a good debt to income ratio is making sure that you control your debts, you minimize your debts. That will help you qualify for as much house as possible. Now, debt to income ratio is also important when it comes to buying investment properties, because you got to be thinking, well, Kris, let's say I use my precious amount of debt to income ratio to buy an investment property. Won't that mean that I get capped out fast and I can't buy more homes? Listen, here's what I want you to understand. When you buy a house, if you buy it right, let's say you buy it with a discount, or you make sure you buy it where there's a really high cash flow, or maybe you're using my lease option system so that you're guaranteeing a really high cash flow. Do you know what that does for you? Banks will typically allow you to use 70% of your rent income and count it against the liability. So check it out. Let's say that you have a mortgage that is $1,000 a month, but let's just say that you were renting for $1,400 a month. Well, the bank will allow you to take 70% of the $1,400 a month and count it against your debt to income ratio. So let's do the math. 70% of $1,400 is essentially a little over $1,100 a month. Well, my mortgage is $1,000 a month. So guess what that means? By buying an investment property, my debt to income ratio actually went down, and I can do it again and actually qualify even easier for my next house. I learned this that with my first several homes that I bought, because I had such great cash flow, that every single time I made a purchase, my debt to income ratio went down and I could buy more and more and more real estate. Hence, when you buy an investment property, it is super, super important to make sure that you have a great cash flow. At least make sure that 70% of the total rent would basically cover the mortgage. And if that's true, then you know what? You can snap your fingers and qualify for that next house. Did I really come all the way to Alaska and hike these mountains just to make a video about debt to income ratio? Meanwhile, Mount Doom is in the background. But you know, the big question on everyone's mind right now with recent announcements is, will debt to income ratio stay? They've been using it for the last decade, in fact, since the last subprime crisis. And If you didn't watch one of my latest videos on what would happen if debt to income ratio went away and how much easier it could literally become to qualify for a mortgage, you're gonna wanna check out this video right here. But for those that are just kind of getting caught up, let me just tell you real quick. Debt to income ratio, there's some political maneuvers that actually might make it go away, and if it does, it's actually good news all across the board, because there's a lot of people that will get turned down from banks to get mortgages because the debt to income ratio numbers aren't lining up. And guess what? It turns out debt to income ratio is not a perfect analysis of whether a person should be able to qualify for a property or not. It turns out we actually might be moving in the direction of being able to qualify on an investment property more on the merits of the investment than your personal financial situation. My friend, if you specialize in buying real estate that's highly profitable, it could be a lot easier to get a mortgage for the right kind of deal. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you liked it. I hope you are a subscriber. But more importantly, you've just journeyed with me through 75 miles in the Alaskan wilderness on our journey of also learning about debt to income ratio. If you're ready to take your next step to get in the game of real estate investment, then I want you to click the link below and actually get access to a free copy of either of my books, The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth, which is Real Estate 101 for Beginners. You can also pick up a copy of Krohn Consortium. It's my document showing the last $4,000 billion worth of real estate that I've transacted, my track record, and the exact system I use for building wealth with very little time. Click the link below, get your hands on that, and thank you so much for joining me on our journey today. Hey, thanks for joining me on my Alaskan adventure, all 75 miles of it. Check out this video right over here, and I'll see you tomorrow.